What are some of the key challenges to policy design and valuation that cities and businesses are faced with? And what are some potential solutions?
If I take a step back at the very high level, and from my own personal perspective in terms of the work that we've done, I think the main challenge often arises from a capacity perspective. And so often, and we've seen this not only in some of the kind of work we've done within South Africa, but also outside of South Africa, is that there are no shortage of good people working in the various departments and in the various municipalities, both within South Africa and outside of South Africa as well. Um, but I think the main challenge often comes down to the fact that um, there is a shortage of skilled capacity within within these departments, and I think that is exacerbated to quite a great extent at the municipal level. And so even when it comes to policy design, um, often the capabilities of being able to design the policy are there, but for example, you don't have the necessary capacity in terms of the actual people to be able to undertake the work to implement effectively. But then I think the other major challenge has often been to monitor and evaluate the impacts of those policies, both before implementation and after implementation. So from a broader kind of challenge that I think is fundamental to a lot of the kind of issues that are coming out is around capacity. Um, I think the other one, and maybe just again from my perspective at the municipal level, is one of financial capacity. And I think this is especially true of municipalities outside of the metropolitan municipalities, that the kind of district, well, maybe not the district, but the very small local municipalities, where in addition to the kind of skilled capacity in terms of human resources, there is often a financial challenge, even even the issues around, for example, corruption notwithstanding. I think there is a severe financial challenge that a lot of these municipalities face, and it's not clear exactly how that can be addressed, given the kind of demographics and markets in which the kind of smaller municipalities operate. So for example, they often have to provide a range of services and needs in order to adhere to the constitution, for example. But the market in which they operate means that they can't often charge market related rates for the services that they provide. That the market in which they operate is too small from a demand side perspective, and that exacerbates some of the financial challenges. So for me, those are kind of two core challenges that I think are faced by the public sector and I guess more narrowly the municipalities in South Africa more specifically. If I step back and look at a much higher level from a kind of, let's call it a more macro global perspective, I think there's probably two core issues that are now going to drive future challenges for cities. The one is around climate change, and so the severity and relative extreme nature of weather events is increasing, and we've seen that just in the last 3 to 5 years. I think it's going to continue to increase based on all scientific evidence that's available. And I think municipalities are not currently at a stage where they have been able to build a resilience against that kind of climate change impact. I think the other one, which again we see quite clearly in South Africa, especially for the major metropoles, but which I think maybe not sufficient attention has been paid to, is around migration related to climate change. And so what is inevitably going to happen is that you're going to see a high degree of migration from heavily impacted areas due to climate change, and that migration is going to have a very, very severe impact on cities in terms of their ability to to provide the necessary services and also to address the kind of issues that arise due to migration. And so I think those two kind of key areas around climate change are something that needs to be considered by cities as a very clear challenge in the near future. I think the other one is, and it's hard to say how much of a challenge versus opportunity it is. But I think in the short term, it is very much a challenge for cities around the digital revolution. I mean, the immediate concerns is obviously the ability to provide um, a higher degree of service quality with much less manpower. And so what that ultimately means is that you require much less labor to generate the same levels of productivity. And then again, that has very clear impacts on um, both at a kind of macroeconomic level, but also at a citywide level, in terms of the ability for employment to be generated by any new kind of innovations and increased productivity at a firm level. And so I guess the question is, how do cities address that? If they're seeing increased productivity by firms, but employment is not actually increasing, what is it that cities can do? How are they expected to address that? How should they be addressing that? And then at a much more national level, that's something that national government, I think, also needs to consider going forward. So I think those are kind of the kind of broad global challenges. Obviously, within the South African specific context, we have a range of challenges related to infrastructure. And again, cities being the coalface of engagement with its citizens, the cities are going to be hardest impacted by infrastructure deficiencies and the lack of maintenance around our various infrastructure. That extends from obviously the most prominent one being obviously electricity. Some of us might be in current load shedding stages at the moment, so that's a very clear challenge. But again, that extends to water and sanitation, transport and logistics, road and rail. So no shortage of challenges, I think, that need to be addressed by at both a kind of national and local level.